Hello and welcome to LifeTalk with Mariette. I am Mariette. I'm so glad you're here. Let me know in the comments or send me a message where you're listening or watching from. I love knowing where my stories find their way. Here I share thoughts, experiences, and stories that touch us, inspire us, and sometimes challenge us. Whether you're in the middle of life or figuring things out anew, you're not alone because you don't have time to get old, only time to grow. So let's take this journey together. And we all have heard of people say it's time to grow up emotionally, not just physically, or you've aged, now grow up. I have heard the first one more than once. So it's time to grow up emotionally, not just physically. But it's not that easy. And I want to share Jimmy's story with you today. It's a real story. I bring nothing but real stories and real experiences on this channel. I don't work any other way. So the title is He Never Grew Up, and it's about Jimmy. He's 74. He lives alone, never married, no children, no deep relationships anyone would remember. Too many, he's the nice old man from the neighborhood, one who nods politely, drinks his coffee at the same time each day, living in quiet, repetitive rhythms. Unremarkable, polite, harmless. But look a little closer and you'll see Jimmy never grew up. Not intellectually, not emotionally, not as a person. He's a man who aged but never evolved. So what's happening? What happened? Or better, what didn't happen? Jimmy grew up in a time when feelings weren't discussed. Boys had to be tough. No one asked how you felt. You were either strong or silent. His parents, distant, dutiful. Love came through chores, not words, and certainly not through touch. So Jimmy stayed quiet, and over time, he forgot that there were anything to say. Over time, he forgot that there was anything to say. He got older, held jobs, earned money, had hobbies, casual conversations, and acquaintances. But inside, he stayed young. Not youthful in a fresh way, but underdeveloped, reactive instead of reflective, an observer of life, not a participant. He got his emotional compass from TV, from sitcom, dramas, talk shows. That's where he learned how people should behave. That's right. What's wrong with that? When to laugh, when to be outraged. That became his school, his measure of life. Can you imagine that? And he would bring that into conversations. You could talk about real life situations with him, what you personally experienced, and he would reply with what he had seen on TV and how that somehow matched what you were talking about. But I never thought about that, but I have now. In conversations, he says all the right things, but what he really thinks, what he really feels, is unclear. Ask him and he dodges. He says things like, well, that's just how it is, or that's normal. But nothing about his life is normal because it's been hollow, not in the financial sense, but emotionally. He never asks himself who he really is. And that is the tragedy. You can grow old without ever growing up. You can exist without ever really feeling. You can decide things without ever thinking them through. That's Jimmy. Stuck emotionally at a child's level. He makes decisions impulsively, gets angry quickly, but never analyzes it. If things go wrong, it's always somebody else's fault. Responsibility is something he knows only in the workplace, never personally. That's a very, very interesting point. Because I always appreciated his responsibility, but you're right. I'm totally right. It was only in the workplace, never personally. Especially in business, Jimmy orients himself to what he sees. He thinks success looks like what's on TV, bold, harsh, dominant. When someone on TV is aggressive in a meeting or closes a deal loudly, he finds it clever. He tries to mimic it, but it's wooden, forced. It's not conviction, it's imitation. You notice it in how little changes over the years. No evolution, no new ideas, no redirection. Everything stays the same. His opinions, his worldview, his routine, even in his speech. He repeats it like a broken record. It's amazing. Motion without movement. The saddest part? Jimmy doesn't know, or he chooses not to. He lives in a world where self-reflection has no place, where no one ever taught him to ask, why do I do this? What do I need? What do I feel? And if you ask him, he'll smile, nod, say he understands, but the next day, nothing will have changed. Sometimes you wonder, isn't that kind of life easier? No questioning, no inner turmoil, no emotional mess. But the truth is, no, it's not easier. It's sad. I find that very sad. Because somewhere inside Jimmy is a man couldn't have been, who couldn't have been more. He could have been more. Who would have laughed until he cried. Who could have loved without fear. Who he could have said, I made a mistake and grow from it. But that part of him was locked away for decades, untouched, unlived. And this is the truth, folks. There are so many like him. People who grow old but never grew up. Who plays life from the sideline. Who mimic what they see but never ask, what do I truly want? And it's not always their fault. They had no guide. And no one told them, your feelings matter. Your thoughts count. You're allowed to be different. But at some point, we all must choose. And Jimmy never chose. He just continued. The lesson in this story today? Growth isn't bound by age, but stagnation has a cost. If you don't reflect, you repeat. If you don't feel, you function. If you don't ask, you remain stuck. And if you don't know yourself, you remain a stranger in your own life. And I'll repeat that. If you don't know yourself, you remain a stranger in your own life. Jimmy is alive, but he's never really lived. I repeat, Jimmy is alive, but he's never really lived. And what's missing isn't time, it's depth. I've known Jimmy for over 10 years, and yes, he is a total responsible person when it comes to business. Emotionally, he has never grown up. Some people grow old without ever growing up. Thank you for being here today. If my story touched you or gave you something to think about, just maybe a little spark, feel free to share it or message me and let me know what you took from it. So subscribe to the channel so you don't miss a single episode. And don't forget, life changes and we grow with every experience. Till next time. See you soon. Mariette.